Victor was a poor fisherman who lived near a small village. He spent most of his days on the river, hoping to catch enough fish to sell in the market. The villagers often warned him that the river was haunted, but Victor laughed at their stories. He did not believe in ghosts. He only believed in his fishing rod and his courage. One dark and silent night, Victor took his small boat to the middle of the river. The air felt heavy and the silence was strange. Usually, he would hear crickets, frogs, or even the splash of fish, but that night there was nothing. The stillness of the river gave him an uneasy feeling, but he still dropped his bait into the water and waited. Hours passed, and not a single fish came near his hook. He grew tired and thought about going home. Just as he was about to pack up, the line on his rod pulled hard. Victor's eyes lit up with excitement. The pull was stronger than anything he had ever felt. He thought he had caught the biggest fish of his life. When he finally pulled it out of the water, his blood ran cold. The creature on his hook was not a normal fish. Its body looked half like smoke, half like flesh. White glowing eyes stared at him, and its bones showed through its thin, ghostly skin. Victor froze, unable to move. The fish opened its mouth and spoke in a deep voice that echoed across the river. "This river belongs to the dead. You should not be here." Victor trembled, but could not let go of his rod. Suddenly, the fish grew larger, turning into a monstrous shadow. Dark waves rose high, and ghostly faces of drowned souls appeared in the water, whispering his name. Before he could escape, the ghost fish wrapped itself around him and dragged him into the river. By morning, his boat was found floating empty. The villagers whispered that the river had claimed another victim, and from that night, no one dared to fish there again. Victor loved fishing more than anything. He believed the river was his only hope to earn money and survive. One night he decided to go fishing even though the villagers had warned him not to go after dark. They said the river belonged to spirits, but Victor was stubborn and thought they were just trying to scare him. The night was strangely quiet. Normally, the river would be full of sounds, frogs croaking, owls calling, or insects buzzing, but this time, everything was silent. The silence felt heavy, almost like the whole forest was holding its breath. Victor pushed his boat into the water, sat down, and threw his bait into the river. He waited and waited, but no fish came. The moon was hidden by clouds, and the darkness around him grew thicker. Victor's eyelids became heavy, and he thought he had wasted his night. Just as he was about to leave, his fishing rod bent sharply. A sudden powerful pull made his heart race with excitement. He thought this must be a catch worth a fortune. Victor pulled with all his strength, and finally, something broke through the surface of the water. His excitement quickly turned into terror. A horrible fish, half transparent and glowing, hung on the line. Its eyes shined like two white flames, and its skin seemed to melt into mist. Victor could even see bones glowing inside its body. The creature's mouth opened, and a cold whisper floated into the air. "You do not belong here. This is the river of the dead." Victor wanted to scream, but no sound came from his mouth. Suddenly, ghostly hands rose from the water, grabbing his boat and rocking it violently. The fish grew larger, its body turning into a shadowy monster. With one final scream, Victor was dragged into the dark river, never to be seen again. The next morning, only his boat was found, gently floating near the shore. Victor sat alone in his boat, staring at the dark water. Hours had gone by, and not a single fish had touched his bait. The river looked lifeless, as if all creatures had disappeared. He began to feel frustrated. His stomach was empty, and his eyes felt heavy from waiting too long. Just as he thought of packing his things and going home, his rod suddenly bent with great force. His tiredness vanished in an instant. His heart started beating fast, and excitement filled his face. He thought, at last, "This must be the biggest fish I have ever caught." Victor held the rod tightly and pulled with all his strength. The struggle was hard. The line pulled so strongly that his arms began to ache. For a moment, he even worried that the fish might drag him into the water. But he refused to give up. His pride as a fisherman gave him strength, and he fought harder. The boat shook with every tug, and the water splashed loudly around him. Sweat rolled down his forehead as he tried to bring his catch to the surface. He imagined selling a giant fish in the market and earning more money than ever before. That thought pushed him to fight even harder. Finally, after what felt like a long battle, the dark shape of the fish appeared under the water. Victor's eyes widened, filled with both hope and fear. The size was unbelievable, but something about the shadow did not look right. The outline of the fish was strange, and the water around it seemed to glow faintly. Victor whispered to himself, "What kind of fish is this?" His hands trembled, but he pulled one last time, determined to see his prize. That was the moment when his night turned into horror, and his fate slowly began to change. Victor pulled with all his strength, and at last, the fish broke the surface of the water. But what he saw made his blood freeze. It was not an ordinary fish. Its body was long and thin, almost transparent, as if it were made of smoke and water. The skin clung tightly to the bones, and in some places, the bones were showing through. Its eyes glowed like two white lanterns in the dark night. Victor stared in shock, unable to believe what he was holding on his hook. The creature's body seemed to change shape every second, shifting from solid to mist, from fish to ghost. Cold air spread around the boat, and Victor felt his skin prickle as though ice had touched his flesh. He whispered to himself, "This is no fish. This is something else." His hands shook, but still he held the rod. The thought of letting go never came, because he felt trapped, as if an unseen force made him keep holding. The creature twisted and turned, splashing water that smelled of rot and decay. Each drop that touched Victor's skin burned like fire. He gasped in pain, realizing this was no normal catch. The river around the boat began to ripple in circles, as though the ghostly fish was not alone but calling to others from below. Victor wanted to escape, but his body refused to listen. His eyes were locked on the glowing creature. The longer he looked, the more it seemed like the fish had a human face hidden inside, crying in silence. Fear crawled deep inside Victor's chest. He realized the villagers' stories were not lies. The river was cursed, and he had just awakened something that should have been left undisturbed. The ghostly fish stopped struggling and hung from the hook, staring at Victor with its glowing eyes. The river became even quieter, as if the whole world was holding its breath. Then, to Victor's horror, the creature opened its mouth. A deep, hollow voice came out, echoing across the water. "This river belongs to the dead," the fish whispered. "You should not be here." Victor's heart pounded in his chest. His hands turned cold, and his breath came in short gasps. He had never heard a fish speak before, and the sound chilled his bones. It felt like the voice was not only in his ears, but also inside his head. He tried to drop the fishing rod, but it was as if his hands were locked. His fingers refused to open. He cried out, "Leave me. What are you?" But his voice was shaky, almost drowned by the sound of the river. The fish twisted its body, and Victor saw something even more terrifying. Its ghostly skin shifted again, and for a moment, he thought he saw the faces of drowned men and women inside its body. Their mouths moved silently, as if they were trying to speak to him, warning him or begging for help. Victor shut his eyes, hoping it was a nightmare. But the voice came again, louder this time, shaking the water around the boat. "You have stolen what is not yours. The river will take you." Victor shook his head wildly, shouting, "No. I only came to fish. I didn't know." But the ghostly fish only stared, its glowing eyes burning brighter. The air grew heavier, colder. Victor felt a dark presence rising from the depths of the river. He realized that his simple act of fishing had awakened something ancient, something that wanted revenge. The ghost fish began to grow larger, stretching its shadowy body across the surface of the water. Victor's eyes widened in terror as the small glowing creature transformed into a monstrous shape. Its misty body spread like smoke, wrapping around the boat, and its glowing eyes turned into two burning lights in the darkness. The river responded to the creature's presence. The calm water suddenly rose in violent waves, tossing Victor's boat from side to side. He grabbed the edges of the boat to keep his balance, but his hands were slippery with cold sweat. Around him, the water no longer looked normal. It turned black, thick, and filled with shadows that moved like living things. From beneath the surface, faces began to appear, faces of drowned men, women, and even children. Their pale eyes stared at Victor, their mouths opening and closing as though they were whispering his name. He could not hear the words clearly, but the sound of their whispers crawled deep into his mind. Victor shouted, "Stay away from me." His voice echoed weakly, lost in the roar of the rising river. The whispers only grew louder. Some of the ghostly faces smiled, while others looked full of pain and anger. The boat creaked and shook, as if invisible hands were pulling it down. Victor tried to row, but the oars snapped like twigs in his hands. He realized there was no escape. The ghost fish had called upon the spirits of the drowned, and they were all around him now. A sudden cold wind swept over the water, making Victor shiver from head to toe. The monster's voice boomed again, shaking the air. "The river takes what belongs to it." Victor felt his strength leaving him. His fear grew heavier, pressing down on his chest. He knew the curse of the river had been unleashed, and his life was about to end. Victor tried to fight back, but his body felt weak and heavy. The ghost fish circled the boat, its misty body glowing in the darkness. The whispers of the drowned souls grew louder, calling his name again and again. He covered his ears, but the voices were inside his head. The boat rocked violently, and Victor lost his balance. He fell to his knees, gripping the side of the boat as the black water rose higher. Suddenly, the ghost fish leapt upward, its body wrapping around him like a chain of smoke and bone. The touch was icy cold, burning into his skin. Victor screamed, "Please, let me go. I didn't mean to." But the creature's glowing eyes only stared deeper into his soul. The river spirits pulled harder, and the boat began to sink. With one final cry, Victor was dragged into the water. The black waves swallowed him whole, pulling him down into the depths where the faces of the drowned waited. His voice echoed for a moment, then disappeared forever. By morning, the river looked calm again, as if nothing had happened. Victor's boat was found drifting near the shore, empty except for his broken fishing rod. The villagers who saw it shook their heads in silence. They knew the curse had claimed another victim. From that day on, no one dared to fish in the river at night. Whenever people passed by, they whispered Victor's name, warning others never to disturb the ghostly waters. Some even said that on moonless nights, you could still hear his cries mixed with the whispers of the drowned. Victor had gone to the river searching for a catch, but instead, the river had caught him. And so, the river kept its secret, hiding the souls it had taken over the years. Victor's name was whispered by the villagers, not as a memory of a fisherman, but as a warning to anyone who dared to disturb the cursed waters. The ghost fish still waits in the darkness, watching, waiting for the next greedy soul to throw a hook into the river. Some say, if you sit quietly by the water on a moonless night, you can hear the sound of splashing, the echo of whispers, and a man's desperate cry fading into the distance. Remember this. Some places are not meant for the living. Some waters are better left untouched. And some catches are not worth the price.